The human soldier trudged through the skeletal remains of the Andros sector station, boots clanging against the metal grates and sending echoes down corridors that smelled faintly of ozone and burnt circuits. He muttered under his breath, mostly at the station, sometimes at himself. Honestly, who builds a station that collapses faster than my Aunt Rilla's souffle? Oh right, probably aliens. The lights flickered intermittently, giving the illusion that the shadows themselves were wriggling with nervous anticipation. He tugged at his helmet visor, which squeaked in protest, and scanned the corridor ahead, finding nothing but the usual assortment of twisted cables and smoke-stained walls. Occasionally, he'd hop over a fallen pipe, landing with a graceless thud and a colorful expletive he hoped didn't echo too far. His mission was technically simple: patrol, check for salvage, report anomalies. The word simple had become a cruel joke ever since the Council sent him to the sector's edge, where ships vanished as casually as stars winked out of existence. But human curiosity, mixed with stubbornness and a distinct lack of caution, had led him to something he hadn't expected. A derelict spaceship tucked into a crumpled docking bay, its hull battered but intact, like a sleeping beast under centuries of neglect. He paused at the entrance, staring at the faded insignias etched into the metal. He squinted. "I swear one of these logos looks like a chicken," he muttered. "Space chickens, that's a thing, right?" He nudged the hull with a boot, then stepped back as it groaned under his touch. After a few cautious beeps and hesitant scans, he opened the airlock. It hissed and clanged, complaining about decades of neglect. He half expected sparks to shoot out and a small robotic eye to appear, glaring at him for disturbing its nap. When nothing of the sort happened, he grinned. "Victory, soldier, you didn't explode anything yet, that's a personal record." Inside, the ship smelled faintly metallic, with hints of ozone and something older, sweeter, and unplaceable, like the scent of ancient flowers trapped in a mechanical tomb. The lights blinked sporadically, casting long, twitching shadows along the narrow corridors, but they were enough to show that the interior was pristine by comparison to the station's ruin. Panels hummed weakly as though the ship itself was alive but tired, and he felt a peculiar thrill at the idea of discovering something that had been lost to time. He stepped cautiously, boots echoing against the floor, and bumped into a console. Sparks danced briefly and the panel flashed a garish shade of red. "Right, step 1 in ship exploration, don't touch the red button. Step 2, don't touch the green button either, apparently. Step 3. Pray a robot doesn't shoot at you," he muttered, reaching for a comm link that refused to respond. Somewhere deep inside, he knew his luck was bound to run out eventually. For now, however, the only response came in flickers of light and the quiet, rhythmic hum of systems half awake. It was then that he heard a sound unlike anything he'd expected. A faint musical hum, slightly off-key, echoing through the corridor. His hand hovered over his weapon and he squinted down the passage. Great, ghosts hum now, perfect. He crept forward, stepping over a tangle of cables, slipping once and catching himself on a railing. "Still got it," he muttered to no one in particular. The hum grew clearer and he realized it wasn't mechanical at all. It was a voice, or something like it. At the end of the corridor, behind a transparent containment field, he saw her. She was tall, almost impossibly graceful, and looked human at first glance, but the long, elegant curve of her ears betrayed her alien nature. They arched backward like delicate instruments, twitching slightly as she observed him. Her eyes, gold-flecked and glowing faintly, studied him with cautious intelligence. She was trapped, but she moved with a dignity that suggested she was more than just a victim of circumstance. When she tilted her head, he could see the faintest curl of a smile, hesitant but amused, and he felt a disarming pull of curiosity he didn't quite expect. He raised a hand awkwardly. "Oh, hello, don't worry, I'm friendly." "Mostly," he said. She tilted her head, regarding him with what could only be described as bemused skepticism. He cleared his throat. "I mean, technically I am armed, but only in self-defense, or, space etiquette emergencies." The alien's ears twitched again, and for a moment he swore she was rolling them. Then she hummed, a sound like a soft chime, and he realized she was responding in her own way. He crouched down to examine the containment field's controls, muttering to himself. "Okay, why is every spaceship puzzle a deadly trap for morons like me? I swear they have a manual somewhere that says Step 1, bewilder human. Step 2, profit. Sparks leapt from a panel as he fumbled with the sequence, and the alien girl's lips curved into something approximating amusement. Not helping, he said aloud, noticing her observing his clumsy fingers with unspoken judgment. I know, it's fine. I am a professional sort of professional. Minutes stretched into long, careful attempts to override the field, during which he tripped over more panels, hit more buttons, and accidentally triggered the ship's intercom. His voice echoed in a distorted, robotic timbre, sounding like a tin can arguing with itself. The alien's golden eyes widened in surprise, and then, unexpectedly, a sound escaped her that was unmistakably laughter. It was brief, musical, and filled with a curious warmth that made him grin despite himself. See, we're bonding, he said. Space buddies, future legends of that time the human made the ship cry for help. Finally, with a cautious sequence of beeps and hums, the containment field powered down. She stepped forward, moving with measured elegance, her long ears twitching as she extended a hand, or the equivalent thereof, in cautious greeting. He shook it awkwardly, muttering, "Hi, I'm well, you already know I'm human, sorry about the tin voice thing." She tilted her head and then, in a gesture that suggested amusement and curiosity all at once, she touched his helmet lightly. The hum of her presence filled the corridor, and for the first time in hours he laughed, half out of relief, half at the absurdity of the situation. Outside, the station groaned and shifted with distant, empty echoes, but inside the ship something fragile and unexpected had begun. Two beings, entirely different yet suddenly connected, stood in the dim light of a derelict vessel, sharing a language of glances, gestures, and awkward jokes. The soldier made a note to himself. If the rest of the galaxy was this weird, he might just survive and maybe even enjoy it. He offered her a ration pack, watching her inspect it like it might bite, and then realized she wasn't actually laughing at him anymore. She was laughing with him. As he carefully navigated deeper into the ship, each corridor revealing more blinking panels and half-sleeping machinery, he felt a strange, buoyant optimism. They were alone in the void, yes, but perhaps alone together wasn't so bad. Every flicker of light, every minor spark of danger was softened by shared glances and quiet chuckles. The galaxy beyond remained vast, uncertain, and occasionally absurd. But for the first time in years, the soldier felt the thrill of discovery extend beyond salvaging technology. It extended to understanding, connection, and the strange humor of an alien friend who might just become more than that. By the time they reached the main deck, he had learned one undeniable fact. The ship might be old, the station might be a ruin, and the universe might be indifferent, but in that cramped corridor with a sarcastic human soldier and a golden-eyed alien girl, laughter and curiosity were enough to light the darkness. And for now, that was exactly what they needed. The human soldier had spent the first few hours circling the ship like a nervous predator, except he wasn't hunting anything, and his nervous energy was mainly aimed at not tripping over every console in sight. The alien girl, standing across the control panel from him, tilted her head and regarded his flailing arms with what he swore was a judgmental twitch of her long ears. "Okay, let's get this straight," he muttered, fumbling with a mass of blinking switches that seemed determined to mock him. "I press this, oh not that, okay maybe that, nothing exploded yet so we're calling it progress." She hummed softly, a sound that seemed to punctuate his chaos, and tapped a panel with a long, slender finger. The display flickered to life, panels shifting and blinking with precision. He blinked. "Oh, so you do know what you're doing. And here I thought humans were the masters of the universe." She didn't reply, but the faint tilt of her head suggested a mixture of amusement and mild pity. He leaned back against the console, wiping a smear of grease from his helmet. "You know," he said, "for someone trapped in a derelict spaceship, you've got the nerve to look smug. I mean, it's almost impressive." She hummed again, a soft, melodic vibration that made the air feel lighter, almost like it was smiling at him. He scratched his chin, considering the absurdity of his situation. Right, here I am, a highly trained soldier at the edge of the galaxy, arguing with a humanoid alien about how to turn on life support. My resume is going to look amazing when I get back. The first real challenge came when the life support systems flickered violently, forcing both of them to spring into action. Panels sparked and a low alarm hummed like an annoyed insect. He jabbed at switches, sending a stream of sparks over the floor. Okay, nobody panic, especially me, I'm a trained professional." Well, trained-ish, the alien girl watched calmly, stepping forward to tap precise sequences into the console with fingers that moved faster than his brain could register. The system responded immediately, stabilizing with a series of comforting hums. The soldier stared at her, mouth open, then muttered, "You know, you could have just said, 'I'll fix it,' and spared me the existential panic." She tilted her head again, and he swore her ears twitched in what could only be described as mockery. Once the immediate danger passed, he took a moment to catch his breath. He gestured to a panel that displayed atmospheric readings and oxygen levels. "See? That's why humans are amazing. We panic, we press buttons randomly, and sometimes, just sometimes, it works." The alien girl let out a soft trill which he took to mean either amusement or polite encouragement. He grinned. "I'll take that as applause." Then, because humor had become his coping mechanism, he jabbed the air with his finger. "And now, for my next trick, I will not blow up the entire ship." She hummed a tone that sounded suspiciously like laughter, though he couldn't be sure. As they moved through the corridors together, the soldier began observing the smaller, more peculiar things about her. The way her long ears twitched in reaction to sounds, the subtle narrowing of her golden eyes when she focused on a task, and how her presence seemed to make the cold, blinking lights of the ship feel warmer. He found himself talking out loud more often, filling the gaps of silence with sarcastic commentary. "Right, so just so we're clear," he said as they reached a junction of flickering hallways, "I'm basically babysitting an alien spaceship that doesn't want to explode. I thought my life was exciting before." "Ha," she hummed softly, tilting her head as if responding with a gentle rebuke. "Okay, fine," he said, pointing at her cautiously. "You're judging me, I get it." Noted memo to self. Humans are clumsy, aliens are flawless, check. The humor helped them work together. When he fumbled with the power couplings, causing the lights to flash like a disco, she didn't scold him. She hummed a musical note and touched the correct switch, guiding him with patience. At one point, he grabbed a tool and somehow managed to launch a small maintenance drone spinning into a corridor. "Great," he muttered. "Now we have a tiny death machine loose on the ship. Fantastic, really professional work here." She watched the drone spin and then hummed, a sound that seemed to carry laughter in it. He turned to her, raising his hands defensively. "I swear it was an accident, I'm excellent at this." Her ears twitched, and he decided that was her version of a human grin. Between repairs and avoiding catastrophic accidents, he started noticing the little signs of her curiosity and subtle attempts to communicate. She pointed at displays, tapped sequences in a way that suggested, "Try this," and occasionally mimicked his gestures, creating a silent dialogue neither of them fully understood but both could follow. He found himself responding, half joking, half serious. "Oh, so now we're talking without words, very classy, very galactic, space diplomats would be proud." She let out a short trill which he took as an enthusiastic, if sarcastic, agreement. At one point, the oxygen scrubbers began making an alarming grinding sound, and he leapt over to inspect them, muttering, "Why does everything have to be dramatic in space? Can't life support just politely do its job for once?" The alien girl moved alongside him, guiding his hands to the proper valves and switches. They worked side by side, communicating in gestures, humming, and the occasional wordless exclamation. The human soldier had never been this in sync with another being, especially one who wasn't human. And yet, it felt natural, almost absurdly comforting. Their collaboration led them to a small storage bay where he offered her a ration pack from his suit, something he always carried for long patrols. She examined it with exaggerated caution, sniffing it and then mimicking a dramatic recoil that made him laugh aloud. "Yes, that's exactly how humans react. I mean, sorta, maybe, I don't know, never seen this before either." She hummed, soft and musical, and the sound was so perfectly timed that he laughed harder. "Right, so we're doing this," he said, gesturing at the pack. "Trust exercise. You eat it, I eat it, and we decide if the galaxy is secretly a gourmet paradise or a cosmic practical joke." She tilted her head and tapped it lightly with one finger, then delicately accepted it, eating it with measured curiosity. He grimaced and followed suit. "Yep, definitely a cosmic practical joke." Hours passed as they explored the ship, repairing systems, and discovering oddities that made him mutter constant commentary. A panel that produced a holographic garden startled him until he realized it was purely decorative, meant to ease the psychological strain of long voyages. Right, so this is your version of room service, he said. I approve. Also, who knew alien flowers could look like tiny disco balls? She hummed a soft note of agreement, and he could swear her ears quivered in delight. By the end of the chapter, the ship's systems were stabilized enough for travel, and the soldier and the alien girl had established a rhythm of working together, punctuated by humor and quiet, careful trust. He had learned to anticipate her movements, and she had begun to understand his clumsy logic. They had survived flickering power grids, rogue drones, and the occasional sarcastic mutterings about space cuisine. And in the quiet moments between chaos when the stars glimmered faintly against the viewport, he realized something profound. The universe was vast, unpredictable, and occasionally ridiculous. But with this strange, golden-eyed companion beside him, it was also strangely bearable, even enjoyable. They paused in the main corridor, facing a viewport that revealed the endless black sprinkled with stars. And for the first time, the soldier allowed himself to imagine that survival wasn't the only thing on the agenda. Perhaps understanding, companionship, and laughter in the void were worth as much as any mission report. He offered her a nod and a grin, which she returned with a gentle hum and a subtle twitch of her ears. And so, side by side, clumsy human and elegant alien, they prepared for the next stage of their journey, carrying with them the fragile, warm certainty that in the cold expanse of space, two beings could forge a connection strong enough to outlast the chaos, the danger, and the absurdity of it all. The repaired ship hummed softly beneath their feet, a steady rhythm that felt almost like a heartbeat, as if the vessel itself was acknowledging their improbable teamwork. The human soldier stood at the control panel, staring at the blinking starfield outside the viewport, his gloved fingers tapping a steady, nervous rhythm against the console. The alien girl stood beside him, her golden eyes reflecting the distant constellations, long ears twitching occasionally as if tuning into a frequency only she could hear. She hadn't spoken in words yet, but her gestures, hums, and subtle movements had become a language he could almost understand, and he found himself responding to them instinctively, as though they were some kind of shared code that had evolved in the hours they'd survived together. Right, he muttered, leaning over a cluster of panels and attempting to decipher what the ship's navigation system was trying to tell him. If I'm reading this right, we've got a clear path to the nearest station. And by clear, I mean there are fewer exploding asteroids than usual. Statistically, a win. He glanced at her and she tilted her head in what he decided was a gesture of patient skepticism, one ear flicking almost imperceptibly. He scratched his neck beneath his helmet and muttered, I swear you're silently judging me, that's fine, I deserve it. She hummed, a sound that had gradually become reassuring, almost musical, and he allowed himself the smallest of smiles. The journey wasn't without its obstacles. Small meteor swarms flitted past their path, forcing him to maneuver the ship with exaggerated care. Okay, note to self, he said aloud, gesturing at the stars as if they could hear him. Never underestimate the lethality of space rocks. Not even the tiny ones. They're like cosmic mosquitoes with attitude. She let out a trill that sounded suspiciously like laughter, and he chuckled in return, thinking he was beginning to understand that humor transcended species boundaries. As they passed through the outer debris fields, the soldier found himself thinking back to the moment he had first found her. The containment field, the awkward introductions, the constant stream of minor catastrophes that had somehow forced them to work together. It all seemed so absurd now, and yet it had shaped him in ways he hadn't anticipated. He realized he had changed. The rigid, overly cautious human who had wandered through the Andros sector with nothing but a blaster and a sarcastic mouth had been replaced with someone who could trust, improvise, and connect with another being in the most unpredictable of circumstances. And he had laughed more in the past day than he had in months. The alien girl stepped closer, her hand hovering near the console, fingers brushing lightly against the interface. He watched as she guided his hands subtly, almost imperceptibly, nudging him to press the right sequences. You're teaching me patience, he said, half to himself and half to her, and I think I'm learning. She hummed softly, the vibration reverberating through the metal floor, and he took it as a confirmation. They were partners now, not just in survival, but in understanding, navigating a universe that had previously felt cold and indifferent. Hours into their flight, the ship's logs began to reveal fragments of its past. Cryptic entries about scientific missions, encounters with unknown species, and warnings about hostile forces that had been pursuing the vessel. The soldier leaned back in his seat, letting out a low whistle. "Well," he muttered, "looks like someone was having a really bad day before I showed up. Good thing I brought my unique brand of incompetence to spice things up." The alien girl tilted her head and he noticed her ears flick in amusement. "Yeah, that's right, I'm a disaster with charm, you're welcome, universe." Their first real test came when a rogue patrol drone, presumably searching for the lost ship, detected their signature. The alarms blared, lights flashing in urgent reds and yellows. The soldier groaned. "Of course, couldn't have a smooth ride, could we?" "Nope. Enter stage left, the existential threat that wants to vaporize me." She stepped forward calmly, her hand hovering over a set of controls he had only just begun to understand. Following her gestures and humming along, he manipulated the panels, rerouting power and diverting the ship's signature to avoid detection. The drone scanned, paused, and then drifted off into the void, leaving them unscathed. He exhaled, slumping against the console. "And we survive. Another day, another narrow escape. I'm getting really good at this." She hummed, a soft vibration that seemed to carry a note of approval, and he allowed himself a full, genuine grin. In the quiet aftermath, he began to consider the deeper implications of their journey. They had started as two strangers, one human, one alien, each cautious and wary, but necessity had created a bridge between them. Trust had been built not on shared language but on shared experience. Saving life support, dodging debris, improvising repairs, and laughing at absurdity. He realized that he had begun to see the universe not just as a hostile expanse, but as a place of potential connection, adventure, and yes, ridiculous humor. And somehow, in the midst of all this, he had come to value the alien girl not merely as a companion in survival, but as someone who had changed the way he viewed himself and the stars. They reached the coordinates of the nearest safe station just as a pale blue sun began to crest over the edge of a nearby planet. The soldier maneuvered the ship into the docking bay with exaggerated caution, muttering under his breath about interstellar traffic rules and whether spaceport maintenance crews gave out medals for human-alien cooperation. The alien girl moved alongside him, her hand occasionally brushing his as she assisted with the docking sequence. The closeness was subtle, fleeting, but charged with a quiet understanding that had grown between them over countless crises and shared laughter. Once docked, they disembarked together, stepping into the station's bustling corridors where species from countless worlds mingled. He offered her a cautious glance, expecting her to recoil at the crowd, but instead she moved with grace, ears twitching as she took in the chaos with curiosity rather than fear. He found himself laughing quietly, a sound full of relief and warmth. "I guess you're going to be okay in social settings," he muttered. She hummed, and for the first time he understood it as an unmistakable acknowledgement of mutual respect and camaraderie. As they walked toward the station's central hub, the soldier reflected on everything that had happened. He had discovered an abandoned spaceship, rescued an alien being, survived asteroid swarms, rogue patrol drones, and the absurdity of human-alien cooperation. He had laughed more, panicked less, and formed a connection that transcended words. In short, he was no longer the same man who had wandered into the derelict ship. He had grown into someone capable of empathy, patience, and partnership in a universe that often seemed indifferent. The alien girl stopped at a window overlooking the bustling spaceport, her golden eyes tracking a freighter as it disappeared into the stars. She hummed softly, and he leaned against the railing beside her, offering the simplest of gestures. A nod, a shared smile. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Enough to say without words that they had survived, learned from each other, and perhaps in a vast and uncaring galaxy found a kind of home in the presence of another being. The soldier felt a sense of closure settle over him like a warm, familiar weight. He had come seeking adventure, and he had found it in the most unexpected of companions. He had come prepared for danger and discovered connection. And he had come alone, only to realize that the universe in all its